This video is sponsored by Planoly. If you're a content creator on Instagram, you've probably wondered at some point or another whether hashtags are actually useful. You may have even been a little bit confused about how many you should use, what ones you should use, or why you should use them. So in today's video, we are going to be shedding some light on hashtags in particular, and we'll be going through some of the techniques that I like to apply to my own Instagram account to help me get the best reach overall. For those of you who are new to this channel, hi, my name is Kaylee. I'm a beauty and fashion photographer based in Australia. However, I'm also a content creator, and I started this channel a few years ago to talk about all things business, social media, content creation, and freelancing. And as I mentioned, today we are going to be really delving into hashtags and why they might be important for you and how you can really use them to your best advantage. Now, I do really want to preface this video by saying that hashtags are not the only way to get reach on Instagram. They are not the most important thing on Instagram if you're a content creator, but they can really aid you in getting more reach. There are actually other things that I would recommend doing alongside hashtags to really help you get the most reach possible. But having said that, I really do think that they're still important enough, and especially if you are just starting out on Instagram and you're wanting to get as many followers on board as possible and as many eyes on your work, then I think this video will really be for you. But before we get into the video today, a quick word from this video's sponsor, Planoly. Planoly is an online social media planning platform, a one-stop shop for all of your content creation needs. One of my personal favorite ways to optimize my content is by using Planoly's hashtag manager. Not only can you save hashtags into dedicated groups for easier future access, but you can also do your hashtag research from the ease and comfort of the Planoly interface. Get the most out of your content creation this year by utilizing Planoly. For 30% off all annual plans, make sure to use the code Kaylee30 and click the link in the description box below to learn more. Now, back to the video. Okay, so since we're going to be talking about hashtags for success, I really want to point you in a few directions today of how you can use hashtags to your best advantage possible. So one of those ways that you can really get on top of your hashtags and really make sure that you're using them correctly is to do hashtag research. Now, as most of you probably already know, hashtags are going to be so dependent on what niche you have. Which hashtags you actually use is also going to be really dependent on the goals of your account. Are you looking to make your account a full-time venture with Instagram where you can earn a full-time income? And are you looking to create some opportunities for sponsorships and brand deals? Or do you really want to grow your audience at this point, and is that your main focus? Maybe you want to do a bit of both, and that is really going to affect, like I mentioned, what hashtags you actually use. So in terms of doing hashtag research, a few of the things that I really like to do before I make a post or before I actually have a post go live and I'm figuring out which hashtags to use, I like to do research at this point. Now, what I'll do is I'll usually go to the search bar on Instagram and I'll start typing in different keywords that have some sort of relevance to the post I'm making. So for example, I run a travel Instagram account at Kaylee_journeys. And for example, if I was to post something from my recent trip to New Zealand, whether that be a reel or a regular post, and maybe the post is about a particular hike that I've done in New Zealand, and then I would go and search keywords that are relating to that post. So for example, I'd start looking up keywords like New Zealand and travel and photography and hiking, any keywords that are surrounding that, and start to look at some of the hashtags that actually come up in the search. Now, the great thing about the search when you're trying to find hashtags to use is quite often it will tell you a number underneath of how many accounts have actually utilized that hashtag. I think the really important thing is here to not use too many hashtags that have a really high usage rate. And the reason for this is that it's going to make it a little bit difficult for people to actually find your content. If it's got a really high usage rate, it means that a lot of people are using that hashtag, and it means that the content is just getting completely refreshed constantly with people using that hashtag. So like I said, not too many people are going to be able to land on that hashtag page and actually find your content. It's going to get pushed right to the bottom of the barrel very, very quickly. So I think it's important to use maybe a couple here and there, but I wouldn't say focus on those particular hashtags. I'd be a little bit more specific than that. So for example, using a hashtag such as New Zealand, that has a very, very high usage rate. And although I do want to still use that hashtag because it's very relevant to my post, obviously, I think it's also good to use a mix of other hashtags that are still relevant and still even have that keyword in there. So for example, if you look a little bit further down, we can see here that there's New Zealand trip, which is a little bit more specific, but still really, really highly searched. searched. So I think it's good to use some hashtags that are kind of in that midpoint, in that they don't have really, really little usage and they don't have really, really high usage. There's somewhere in the middle, and it means that if someone does click on that particular hashtag, that they might see your content a little bit more easier, and it's not going to be immediately just pushed down to the bottom after a few seconds of actually having tagged it. You can actually be really creative with this, and there's a lot of different hashtags, for example, for this particular post that I could use. And it just takes a little bit of research to find what hashtags are really trending and which ones you should probably leave alone. Another thing that I really love to do when I'm doing my hashtag research is to go and find feature accounts that have some sort of similar thread to the content I'm posting. So find those feature accounts and then have a look, and usually in their bio section, they will have their own hashtag that you can tag to then get featured later on down the track. This is a really good way to try and expand your reach, and especially as a travel content creator, I've found that this is a really, really good way to help push that reach a little bit further. Maybe not necessarily immediately, but when some of these accounts do feature your work a little bit down the track, you'll actually find that you'll get that little bit more exposure, which is really nice. So I actually really love to collect some of those just for feature accounts and really maximize my chance of my work being featured elsewhere, especially to accounts with a much, much larger following. In saying this, I would never pay to be featured on a feature account on Instagram, and some of these accounts can be a little bit dodgy, so just look out for that, because you'll quite often get DMs from some of these really big accounts and they'll be asking you to pay a certain amount to actually be featured on there, and that's absolutely never something that I would do. Only go to those accounts that are for free exposure. Now this actually goes the same for brands. So for example, any brands that I really love to utilize, like Kathmandu, I wear a lot of their clothing. I love their accessories, especially for hiking and traveling with. So I'm always using their hashtag in my posts, which is hashtag out there. And if you go to a lot of brands that you love or you might utilize or be wearing in a shot or be basically just picturing in your content at any point, it's a really good way to start building some relationships with them and just getting your content in front of their eyes a little bit more. So remember that that's a really important thing to do if you're wanting to get more brand sponsorships in the future, or if you're looking at building relationships with brands and talking to potential clients a little bit more. This is a way that you can actually start to get your content in front of them, is by using their hashtags on their Instagram accounts. Now, hashtag research is by far the biggest part of this video, and it's the biggest part of utilizing hashtags. So now we're going to be moving on to what you do once you've got the hashtags that you want to use. So the next thing that I actually do is I group my hashtags together and save them for later. I would hate to be doing this kind of research for every single post that I make, so I definitely make sure that any great hashtags that I find and that I want to reuse for other posts, I make sure I save them for later. And a really easy way to do this is actually by using a platform like Planoly. And of course, like many of you know, I've used Planoly for years, and I really do find their hashtag manager to be really, really valuable for my content. It just means that I can easily add in all the hashtags that I want to keep for later. I can group them together, I can make them really easy access, and I can just add them with a single click. It really takes a lot of hard work out of that process, and I know that I can easily access them at any point. If you're not using Planoly, you can use something like your Notes app on your phone just to save them for later. However, I definitely do recommend having something like a hashtag manager, as it will make your life a lot easier. As I mentioned, it's really good to create groups for these hashtags, so you can group them by location, by the type of post that you're doing. Like I said, it depends what you're trying to aim for within your posts and what kind of content you're posting. I like to have a few different categories, so I might have a category for brands, I might have a category for photography. If I want to try and get featured on Lumix's page on Instagram, then I try and have a few little hashtags surrounding there, and I can easily add them in with a click. Like I mentioned, hiking, travel, outdoors, they're all very relevant, so keeping them in groups is a really, really easy way to access them. Now, the next point to remember alongside with hashtags is to actually tag accounts in your posts as well. Now, there's a way that I would recommend to do this, and I would say that it's best not to tag too many individuals in your posts, because individuals, and I've had this happen before even on my other photography account, where people tend to tag my account and it's not relevant to me at all. It's almost like they tag me in hope of getting a feature on my account, but I don't really do features. It's really just for my beauty and fashion photography. So I don't really recommend tagging too many individuals unless you know that they do features on Instagram. But I do recommend tagging, again, brands or companies, corporations that you would like to work with eventually, or again, some of those feature accounts that I mentioned, and actually tag their account in the post as well as the hashtag, just in case they miss your content when looking through the hashtag page. It can be just a really good way to try and get their attention if they have missed your work. And another point that we're going to cover in this video is how many hashtags should should you use? This is a really big question. I know there's a lot of debate over this, and funnily enough, a lot of people seem to be under the impression that using 5 to 10 is ideal. Now, I think that this has actually been debunked pretty recently as a bit of a myth and as something that isn't necessarily the case, because I do believe that Instagram did come out at some point within the last number of years and maybe said something along the lines of 5 to 10 is ideal. But actually, as far as I've researched, there's not really been anything to say that this is necessarily a bad thing in putting more than 10 hashtags or using the full 30. In fact, it really only makes sense to use the majority of the spots for hashtags that you have available. As I said, I believe this has been debunked recently, and they've found that using above 20 is the best way to get the most reach. Because essentially, if you're using between 20 and 30 hashtags, you're actually getting your content posted to 20 or 30 different pages, hashtag pages. Whereas if you're only doing 5 to 10, it's only going to be 5 to 10. So in my personal opinion, the maths there. It's really important, I think, to be posting over 20 because you're really maximizing your chances of getting the most reach possible. Now, you don't have to use all 30 hashtag spots, but I do think that between 20 and 30 is a really good sweet spot. There's really no harm in adding more hashtags because this is essentially going to classify your account to Instagram, and it's really going to help the algorithm know who to show your content to. So using 20 to 30 hashtags is a really good strategy. Just make sure that they're good quality hashtags and you've done your research on them, and they're not just those really, really popular basic hashtags that a lot of people tend to use. Make sure that you have done your research with them, and I think that that's a really good strategy. Also, remember to use keywords along with hashtags in your captions on Instagram. This is really important because SEO has become a little bit more prominent on Instagram in recent years, and using those keywords along with the hashtags, making sure that you're adding them in the captions will really help, again, maximize your reach. And as a final point to this video, I just want to go through some of the different types of hashtags. So first off, you've got your location hashtags. So this is going to be where your content is based or where your content's from, where you created it. It's going to be a location-based hashtag that you could add. Then there's also branded hashtags. So for example, if you are working for a brand, or if you've got a campaign that you're posting about, or an event, anything that's really branded content there, you can use a branded hashtag. Industry hashtags are to do with the niche that you have, so that's really important to remember, and there could be a really long list of different hashtags that you could use here depending on the content that you produce. These are really important hashtags to make sure that you're adding in, because again, that's going to really help the algorithm know who to push your content to. Community hashtags are really going to be all about bringing your community together, so they might be kind of like a funny hashtag or a trending hashtag that might be going around at any point. And then you've got your descriptive hashtags, which are really just going to be all about describing your content overall. So it's really important to remember these different kinds of hashtags in your work, and remembering that some of these are going to be more important for your content than others, and really take that into consideration at the beginning when you're posting your work and when you're looking at your hashtag research. Well, I hope you really enjoyed this video today, and let me know down in the comments how you like to use hashtags in your own work. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, and make sure you also subscribe to this channel because I'll be posting a lot more videos like this one. Also, let me know in the comments section below what kind of videos you'd like to see me film, because I really like getting requests from everyone. But thank you so much as always for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.